Hey everyone, Brendan Snyder here. How are you? Thanks so much for joining me and welcome to my Iron Maiden CD collection run through. So the band formed in 1975 and have released a total of 17 studio albums, but I've got in my collection 40 CDs of various things, the studio albums, live albums, compilations, a few boots, a little other stuff outside of that. And I'm going to run through it with you guys in chronological order. Maybe you'll find something that you didn't know the band put out, another thing to go collect. But all in all, should be a cool time seeing all the different things that Iron Maiden has put out. One of the best heavy metal bands of all time, and certainly one of the best new wave of British heavy metal bands. So we're going to dive into that here in just a bit. But before we start, if you're new to my channel and haven't already hit the subscribe button, please do. Also leave a comment, hit like. All those things do help support my channel. I'd greatly appreciate it. And of course, as an added bonus, by turning on notifications, you'll never miss an episode and stay up to date on really cool things like this with an Iron Maiden CD collection run through. So as I said, I'm going to try and go through this chronologically. And first off, of note, I definitely do not have everything from the band. There's so much more great stuff that's out there. There's a few live albums and things that I don't have. I just didn't like the sound quality of them. If I remember where they fit in, I will point them out along the way. But I pretty well have a complete collection of stuff, and it's at least complete in terms of what I like. So that's what this is here. Like I said, this is by no means meant to be everything under the sun that Iron Maiden has put out. So we're actually going to start off with a bootleg, but it's a very high quality one. This one here being called the Ultimate Compilation 78 to 81. But the reason that I have it is it has the Soundhouse tapes on it and more. So that was the very first thing that Iron Maiden put out. I think that was a 4-track EP when they did that. It's with Paul Di'Anno. And so that's really what kicks off their career. But this cool bootleg version of this has the Soundhouse tapes, the beginning of this. So I've actually on here, it's got the 4 tracks plus an outtake on it. And then it's got Metal from Mother sessions, BBC Radio 1 Friday Rock sessions, some single tracks. And this is a 2 CD set. So there's also Sanctuary and Live Plus One EP that they did. The BBC Archive tracks are on here, and Made in Japan is also on here. So one way for me to have collected all that sort of stuff since I don't have the individual copies of it. So that's what we kick off with. And now we jump into the album proper. So Iron Maiden's self-titled release, 1980, debut studio album with Paul Di'Anno at the forefront of this. And as you're going to see when going through this, the band had a lot of different lineups over the years, number of different frontmen, and yet they've still risen to the top and are absolutely one of the biggest bands around the world today. So next we've got the second and last album with Paul Di'Anno, Killers. This one came out in 1981. This one here, in my opinion, is superior to the debut. About every track on this thing I really like. So these are also 2 CD editions. I didn't mention that on the first one. These were the Castle Records versions of these that came out in the mid-90s that have single edits and live tracks, basically whatever were the B-sides added as that separate CD. And we've got that as well for the debut. So I'll just crack this one open and show you as well. It actually took a while to collect all of those because I wasn't buying them at the time. And then by the time that I wanted all of them, they had long been out of print. So I just basically had to wait till I found one in a used record store. All right, so next up we got their third studio album, first with Bruce Dickinson, Number of the Beast. And again, we have the 2 CD edition of these things. So what's also cool is I didn't pull this out on the other ones, but it had its own art, and then it tells you what the track listing and all that sort of stuff is as far as that's concerned. But these were cool versions of it. And when they did the remasters in the early 2000s, they didn't include any of that. And I'm really surprised about that. Some of it's been collected up since, and we'll talk about that in a box set when we get to it. All right, next up, fourth studio album, Peace of Mind. This one here, not one of those. I do not have the version. This was a later reissue where if you put them all together, they formed a picture of Eddie on it. And these were enhanced versions. And this happened to be at the time just one album I didn't have by the band. So going way back, but I did finally get it. And the funny thing is, it has now turned out to be my favorite of the Bruce Dickinson era albums. I would put this at #1 over Number of the Beast, but that's just me. All right. First ever Iron Maiden album that I picked up. Of course, mine was on cassette when I did it, but Power Slave. This would have been their 5th studio album, 1984. And so this one here, like the others, being that 2 CD edition of it. So we've got that. And then Live After Death, and this was expanded to a 2 CD edition. It was not originally a 2 CD edition when it came out, but that was the cool thing. So this was the same thing like the Peace of Mind, where with the reissues of that series, a 2 CD edition of this came out, and some other cool things that had not been released domestically came out. I'll show you those when I get to it and point it out as well. So every time they do the reissues, there is something, you know, positive or a plus for the hardcore fans as part of it. Maybe you don't want to buy it all, but this was one of those ones where I was like, well, I got to get the 2 CD edition of it. At some point I'll have to buy the single edition and pop it into the collection and have it. One of my favorite Iron Maiden albums, Somewhere in Time. This is 1986. Another one of the 2 CD edition Castle Records versions. And then we've got Seventh Son of a Seventh Son, which was 1988. And again, we got a 2 CD Castle Records edition of that, followed by a personal favorite of mine, No Prayer for the Dying. 2 CD edition again as well. CD Warehouse, anybody remember them? $8.99, one of their stickers. I've opted to leave it on. This one just as for memory now. Usually I peel all my stickers off, but I just, you know, brings back good memories when I see that. So the 2 CD edition, I was always a little bummed they didn't list out that bonus content on the back sides, having to open these up as I've been showing you and look at them like this. And then you get, you know, art like that with it. But it tells you what it was. So there's that. All right. And then Fear of the Dark, the first album that I bought by Iron Maiden as a new album. I had already bought Power Slave and liked it. I had bought No Prayer for the Dying, but those weren't new at the time. This was the first one that dropped after I became a fan of Iron Maiden. So again, personal favorite of mine, and again, a 2 CD edition of that. Now, that would be the last one with Bruce Dickinson for some time, but when he announced that he was going out, they did it as a whole farewell tour thing and made special albums and videos, and so we got 2 live albums. First up was a real live one. I never thought the sound quality on this was very good, and you know, what's interesting is that back in the day, Iron Maiden didn't seem to be very good live band, and that was just my recollection from things like this. I think the live recordings today are far superior than any of the stuff they were doing. Maybe Bruce is running around too much, I don't know. So single disc of this, and then this was like their newer stuff, and then a real dead one was all of their classic tracks. So it's kind of an interesting way to have gotten it at the time. As a new Iron Maiden fan, I did like hearing that newer material, but it might have been better had it been spread across both releases equally. Later on, a 2 CD edition of this, a real live dead one, came out, and I believe it was part of that reissue campaign that had the face of Eddie appearing on the spine. So those 2 live albums, and here's one of those ones that I was talking about that, which is Live at Donington. This, I believe, was a Japanese only release. Maybe it was a European release too. And it was actually done like a bootleg in a white cover with just like a stamp on it. But it was an official release. I actually have that copy somewhere floating around, but keep this one in the Iron Maiden collection because this is how it got reissued, and I picked it up to get the full album art and everything with it. So this was new at the time that they did those remasters, making that something special. Now, after Bruce Dickinson was out, comes the Blaze Bayley era. And remember, I was fairly new to the band at this time. So with the X Factor 1995 coming out, I really enjoyed this. It was a very different vocal style, everything, but then the 90s were a very different time, and it just kind of worked for me. I absolutely really love this album. I think it could really use a remix as the production on it's very muddy, but I love the album. I devoured this thing inside and out, bought all the CD singles to get the bonus tracks, the B-sides, all that sort of stuff. And to this day, I still really love this album. And since there hasn't been a remix, I did buy the remaster when BMG and Sanctuary did these in the early 2000s. This is the third round of remasters. I think this is the latest version. I don't think we've had another round of remasters just yet. No bonus tracks of any kind, no bonus releases of any kind, but the sound on these were really, really good. And this is a lot better than the original release of it. Next up, they released a 2 CD compilation, Best of the Beast, kind of a little box set version of it in this hardback book style CD up front with a lot of great photos, really covering the full history of the band. It was absolutely fantastic, and maybe a little surprising that they put this out after the first album with Blaze Bayley. And then on here, you got the brand new song Virus. You also got Afraid to Shoot Strangers live featuring Blaze Bayley. You got some of the stuff off of that album, Man on the Edge from X Factor, but 2 CDs worth of Iron Maiden covering all the lead singers. And it was a very cool thing to get some of that stuff, so I enjoyed it. And then after that, we got a single disc edition of this, edited down. I don't remember this being released at the time. So I think this is a reissue of that later on, single disc. And you guys know I love my single disc compilation. So I bought this, and this is the one I grabbed to this day. It's got a bit of a different track listing and sequence on it as well. This kicked off with the new song Virus, which I don't really think was a good thing because it had a 2-minute, very slow intro on it before it kicked in. The song Virus is awesome once it kicks in, but that intro leaves a lot to be desired in my opinion. So we kick off with Number of the Beast on here, Can I Play with Madness, and Fear of the Dark live. And we get Virus way down at number 11 on here. And I'm just looking to see Man on the Edge is still on here. So you do get 2 songs from the Blaze Bayley era of the group, but otherwise it focuses on the Dickinson era. All right, as I mentioned, I do have a few bootlegs like the one you saw at the beginning. And because I'm such a fan of the Blaze Bayley era, I always wanted live Blaze Bayley album. And a few B-sides were released with him singing live, but not full concerts. So I found this, a soundboard collection from 1995 to 1988. 3 CDs from 3 different radio shows. And they have varying levels of quality. One of them is absolutely outstanding, and so I'm glad I bought it to get it for that. And, I would love it if somewhere down the road they would release some archival stuff officially, but it doesn't seem to be something that they're really going to overtly promote, although they still do some of the material from the Blaze Bayley era live occasionally, not always, but certainly when Bruce first came back, they were doing it, and I loved that they recognized that part of their history and did it the same way they do with the early stuff from the Paul Di'Anno years. So 3 CD live album like that. Then Virtual 11 came out, the second and final Blaze Bayley album. A lot of people like this one better. I didn't. It all just kind of sounded a bit the same and not quite as good or progressive as X Factor. I love the song Future Real that it opens with, but the song Angel and the Gambler, which was the first single, and its keyboards just seemed cheesy and out of place. Rest of the stuff on here, Lightning Strikes Twice, The Klansman, When Two Worlds Collide, great stuff on it. So that came out. And again, because I didn't think that it got a good mix at the time, I went ahead and picked up the remastered edition of it. This one being from that third and current series of remasters. They got the cool glossy covers and everything. No bonus tracks again, but I do think that it sounds a lot better. Now, we finally have Bruce Dickinson returning. This is in 2000 for Brave New World. We now have an expanded lineup with 3 lead guitar players. So Adrian Smith, Bruce Dickinson, both returning here, making a fantastic album. But this is another sound change for the band where they really become more of a progressive metal band than ever before. When I remember hearing this at the time, I really thought that this album did not sound like anything Iron Maiden had done. I feel like they've kind of come back around a bit to making more traditional Maiden sounding stuff, but they've really kind of remained in that progressive era of the band. So everything from 2000 on for the last 25 years has really been a new sound for the band. So this album comes out, and I went ahead and did the same thing. I think at that time, this was where we are with new albums. So I picked this one up just to have a remastering of it. But that was the last of the remasterings that I have picked up from any of those things. Now, this is where the band starts basically releasing a live album from every tour that they do. So we get Rock in Rio, which was absolutely enormous. Double album put out. They keep re-releasing the song Fear of the Dark live, and it's like you had it off of a real live one. We get it off of Live at Donington, and then they did it off of this, and I think they've maybe even released it again since that time, and it's like, stop already. You've had it as a single, not only from the album, but multiple live releases, so we don't need it anymore. So with Bruce Dickinson back, what happens? You get a new compilation called Edward the Great Greatest Hits. The first official actual greatest hits of Iron Maiden gets released, and they celebrate all 3 eras of the band. So you do even get Blaze Bayley era on this. We get no new songs, but it does go all the way up through The Wicker Man. And then you get that song, Fear of the Dark, from Rock in Rio as the single on here. So as I said, it just keeps appearing. Now, at that time, what's really cool that came out was the Eddie Archives in this cool metal tin. One of their only box sets of archival material. We've gotten other ones that are album collections, but this one here is the one that actually has, the unreleased material. And it just opens, if I can get it. There we go. So 3 double CDs, a scroll with ring and shot glass on it. The blue interior tells you this was a first series edition. The red interiors tell you it was a reprint after the first series ran out. There's also no numbering on the future ones. This one is numbered on the scroll. But in terms of the albums, this is where we got Best of the B-Sides, collecting up all the B-Sides and tons of them from the Blaze Bayley era on here. Like I was talking about, having bought those CD singles, so that was very cool. We get a whole bunch of BBC archive stuff from them. Again, these are 2 CD releases. And then we get Beast over Hammersmith, full live complete concert. So this was a cool thing because they basically released 3 double albums in one, and whether you liked the live or the B-sides and the cover songs, you got a lot of cool stuff in this release. And so this is a cool box set that still sits out on my shelf today just because of how cool it looks. All right, so returning to studio albums after that now, getting the second Bruce Dickinson album, Dance of Death. Never really cared for this album art that was computer generated, but that was all the rage at the time. So we get this album. And followed by, as I said, we're going to start getting a live album for every release. So then we got Death on the Road. And this is where I started to not get as interested in their live releases because they start covering predominantly new material right at the beginning of shows, and it's not varied enough from the new album that just came out. And when I'm looking for something new, I'm not going to throw it on, maybe later on. But the live releases just got a bit old with me at that point. And so at this point going forward, you'll see that I don't necessarily have all of them. We got the Essential Iron Maiden 2 CD compilation going much further beyond Best of the Beast at this time. This is one that was done by the record label, not really like an Iron Maiden official best of, but just going into the newer material, I wanted it, so I picked it up. We then get A Matter of Life and Death. This is 2006. This is that strange album where they had a rough master of it, and Steve Harris decided he liked it the way that it sounded, just like that, and put it out. So at some point, I'd love to get a full mix and master of this album as to what it should have been had they not stopped at the rough mix version of it. There's a lot of these albums in the 90s and mid 2000s that just, I don't know, need a better mix and master on it. So the band heads out on the Somewhere Back in Time tour. They're doing these tours now where they alternate with the main one that promotes an album to doing more of an archival material tour of this stuff. And they put out a compilation album of just the glory days leading up to the, this is the Somewhere Back in Time. So I think up to Somewhere Back in Time is the material. I don't think we get anything from Seventh Son of the Seventh Son on here. I could be wrong, but this was a cool little compilation to get, different than a live album, something to promote the tour. And I don't remember if this is at the point where they released Flight 666 or not from the documentary and the live show, which was really good. I have the documentary, I just never picked up the live album. At some point, if I find a used copy, I will add it just to complete the collection, but it just wasn't something I needed. We then get The Final Frontier in 2010. Absolutely fantastic. One of the best albums, in my opinion, from the band. It's got an odd intro in Satellite 15 that almost sounds techno-like. But when the song The Final Frontier kicks in, it is classic sounding Maiden. And then you go into the rest of the stuff on here, El Dorado, Mother of Mercy, Coming Home. Absolutely great material. And this was at the time when people thought this might be the last Iron Maiden album, and the band didn't say otherwise. They kind of let everyone believe it. And you, of course, know that we have since gotten 2 more albums, which is really great. We get From Here to Eternity. So this now being an official Iron Maiden compilation release of the newer material from the 90s onward. And we kick off with The Wicker Man, and then we jump back to Holy Smoke, then into El Dorado and Passchendaele. We do get Man on the Edge. We get some live versions of these with Bruce Dickinson and stuff. So it's kind of cool way. So it's all Bruce material, but some live versions from the different eras on here. 2 CDs worth of that. Probably my favorite of the compilations in all. All right, I have another bootleg, but this one here, I believe, is all studio recordings. So this one here is called The Ultimate Studio Works, and it is a 4 CD collection, and it's got a whole disc of cover songs. Then we got alternate versions from 82 to 93, then alternate versions since 1999, and then studio sessions on here, as well as non-album songs. So very cool collection of stuff with fantastic sound quality, with a ton of Iron Maiden unreleased material. Lots of this not found on the Eddie Archives box set, having a lot of it put together after that, post that. So that So why I have that in the collection. And then we got some cool archival releases. We got In Vivo, the band going out from the Final Frontier tour and performing that. So this is from that period. This is not really archival. But following that, we got the Maiden 88 show from back in the day at November 28th, 1988. This is recorded in Birmingham. So that was a very cool thing to actually get an archival live show. They haven't done a lot of that. And so the band then finally returns with Book of Souls in 2015. I can't believe this album already 10 years old. It was their first double album at the time. Good stuff, but could have used some editing on it, in my opinion. And then we get a live chapter from that tour again. Getting a little bit too much with all the live albums, in my opinion. And we have their current studio album. Let's hope it's not the final. Senjutsu in 2021. It's been 4 years already. We should start keeping an eye out for one. I'm hoping 2026 is a brand new album, especially since Bruce Dickinson says his new solo album that he's already written and demoed like 15 or 20 tracks from, says it will not come out until 2027. So I'm hoping 2026 is the year of Iron Maiden. But this one, another double album of material, a bit better than Book of Souls, but not by much, unfortunately. I hope the band gets back to single studio albums. And there was a live album from Senjutsu, but that was the one in particular that I really didn't think that the live sound was very good on, and I just opted not to pick it up. But there you go, my 40 CD collection on Iron Maiden. As I said, doesn't have everything, but it has everything that I want, at least. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed this and maybe found something new within that to go search out, maybe one of those bootlegs, because there's some cool ones that are out there that really collect together a lot of unreleased material. It's done very well. It has good sound, good art, all the above. So there you go. All right, everyone. Hope you enjoyed this. Take care. Have a good one, and I'll talk to you real soon. Bye-bye.